All right. Hello and welcome to our presentation titled Building Connections Through Co-Regulation, the Role of Parent-Child Connection and Emotional Regulation in Early Childhood. A bit of a mouthful. We are going to dig into the learning outcomes of this presentation in just a moment. But first, a very little bit about us.
Sure. So we're and Greg, we're husband and wife. We are first and foremost a team, and we are parents to four beautiful children, ages 3 through 12, all very different children. So through this experience, parenting them for the past 12 years, we've grown more and more passionate about empowering caregivers to become not only the parents they want to be, but the people they want to be
Yeah.
through our Happy Human Life platform that we'll talk a little bit about as we go on.
Yeah. And so I've earned my PhD in the field of educational psychology while Jenilee.
I am a pediatric occupational therapist. I've, worked with all ages, but primarily with children ages birth through 21, working
Yeah.
in the public school system and now working more privately and more directly with parents, which has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been cool. And so we are basically our life's mission together as this husband and wife team is to take all of the science backed knowledge, tools, and strategies, practices that we've learned. And we just want to be better parents ourselves, better partners together. So doing our jobs professionally, but it's so much more personal. And that's why this Happy Human Life mission for us has been so wonderful because as we get better at trying to apply and then share out the things that we're learning, we are just getting better, getting stronger, having a calmer, happier, more peaceful home. And it's just, we're grateful that for everyone that's joined us on our journey, including you now here in this presentation.
Right. I think when we talk about happy human life and parenting has really been our greatest adventure, right? It has presented with a ton of challenges, and we've had to, figure out how we can make parenting like just a little bit easier for us, a lot more fulfilling, how we can really, connect with our kids so that we're not having to use more, traditional parenting in our day-to-day lives, and we find that the more we're able to truly, and this is the hard part,
Yeah.
practice what we preach, the more harmony we have in our own homes. We're hoping just to share a bit of that with you here today.
Yeah. And so to get into our learning outcomes, by the end of this presentation, the idea is you will learn how children borrow calmness from caregivers to regulate emotions and develop the very valuable skill of self regulation over time through this process of co regulation. Also, you're going to understand the importance of self care and emotional balance and showing up as that steady, effective co regulator that our kids need.
Mhm.
And we will discover practical ways to validate feelings, maintain connection, and guide our kids through challenges without the hard part escalating the conflicts.
Right. And, we also wanted to include play in this presentation as a pediatric occupational therapist and Greg as an educational psychologist. We feel that play really is one of our most powerful tools for co regulation
Oh, yeah,
and for being able to foster emotional resilience, not only to reduce stress for our children, but also to reduce stress for us, which just
big time.
reduces stress overall for the whole family system. So, very, very important to leverage play. We'll get into that. And then, can we develop a really deep understanding of prioritizing connection over correction? So, correction can look like punishment, for example. So, how can we connect with our kids versus punishing in order to build trust, reduce power struggles that so many parents and educators talk about? And then, how can we create secure environments, at home, at school, in the community? So that we and our children can all thrive.
Yeah. And so, specifically, what we're going to dig into to meet these learning outcomes, we have four tips that we are going to talk about throughout this presentation, and we are going to go tip by tip. So, the first one there, you see, take care of yourself. Two, to take care of them. More on that in just a second. Be the calm in their storm, and their storm will be raging. The
At times.
number the number one thing we need to do is maintain our calm, maintain our regulation. It's our greatest challenge as a couple these past 12 years. And then generally, like you were saying, that whole idea of connection before co-regulation and the big superhero level tool that we all have, play our way to co-regulation. We're going to go through each of these four tips, giving a little more detail along with each. Are we ready to dig into tip number one, Jen?
I'm ready for it.
All right, let's go.
All right. So, our first tip here is to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of them, right? So, first, just to give you a little bit of background information about co regulation, it really is a buzz term right now. So, you
Oh, yeah.
may be more familiar with it than you even realize. But basically, it's the process where our kids or the children in our classroom are really borrowing the caregiver, the adult, the teacher's calmness in order to help regulate their own emotions. So, what we know from psychology is that kids' brains just aren't equipped and shouldn't be expected to fully self regulate, although we often put this pressure on them, whether we're aware of it or not.
Right.
So they really need us as adults, their trusted adults, to be able to guide them when they get dysregulated or even when they're on the track that we see that they're maybe sort of leaning in that direction, to be able to use our calm to bring them back to that state of calm so that they're able to access whether it be their education, something that they're doing in their home life, out in the community, whatever it might be, so that they're able to show up in a state that's appropriate for the environment and the task that they're engaged in.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think what's really important to mention here, this whole idea of co-regulation, obviously we want to help our kids regulate and calm down through co-regulation, but it's so much more than that, right? Um, so much of being a good parent, a good teacher, or anyone working with kids, but really anyone, is this idea of relationships. And building this kind of positive relationship through co-regulation is what's going to help them, yes, regulate emotions in the moment, but build these skills of regulation over time outside of the moment, just as a whole in general throughout life. And so if we can just be there, present, calm, empathetic, validating feelings, engaging in those connection focused strategies, we can be the ones that really set our kids up to develop the emotional resilience that they're going to need throughout their lives. And it really all starts with that secure bond that they're building with us at home, or again, a lot of kids spend most of their days in a classroom with the teacher. It's up to us to help them build those skills rather than just expect those skills to manifest.
Right. And so, bottom line is we can't show up as co regulators if we're dysregulated. And let's be honest, the world that we live in is overstimulating, right? We're overstimulated, we're overwhelmed. We quite frequently are unable to access our own regulation. And so, if we're dysregulated, we're going to show up as these co escalators, right? We get caught up in their storm or in their fire, whatever way you want to sort of look at it. And sometimes we add fuel to the fire, right? We make that dysregulation bigger with our own dysregulation. Or if you
Yeah.
think of it as a storm, we make that storm bigger with our own storm.
Yeah, and it's not ever our intention to do
No.
that. This is what happens when we get emotionally dysregulated. We're losing control of our ability to maintain good regulation and show up as those people that we want to be. So looking at then that bullet number 2, why does taking care of yourself matter? This is the whole tip here. Take care of yourself to take care of them. It sounds like a silly question just kind of saying it, but how many of us are going throughout the day, just running at such a high emotional temperature, right? We're overwhelmed, overstimulated. We are just burnt out and fried. And you've probably heard the saying, right? You cannot pour from an empty cup. So our ability to co-regulate with kids. And again, this goes well beyond kids. This applies to other adults out there. It depends on how well we've taken care of our own emotional needs. And it's very, very clear. And we've been learning this more than anything over these past few years. Parents who are prioritizing their own well being first are then better equipped to then handle the ups and downs of those really challenging uh, moments, again, with your kids, with other adults, at work, wherever. Taking care of yourself, right? Doing things that serve you so you can then be in a position to serve others.
Right. So you might be thinking to yourself like I am, like, "Oh, that sounds like me. I'm definitely running at a high emotional temperature. I'm overwhelmed or maybe even further. I'm like totally burned out. My cup is empty." Great. I understand that. I know that about myself. But what do I do
Yeah.
to get regulated, right? Nothing has seemed to work in the past. And we find ourselves in this cycle of repeating that to ourselves like we don't have enough time. I don't have things I really enjoy anymore. Nothing really brings that temperature down for me. So it just keeps building and building. And sometimes we're surprised when we yell, but if we really reflect on it, if that emotional temperature keeps rising, eventually the top is going to blow over, right?
Yeah.
So, what can we do? We can build in simple self care routines into your day. And I'm not saying now that you have to spend, 40 minutes journaling or meditating or, an hour exercising or you only can eat, you only have to eat healthy food, and that's how
Tho-
you're going to
Those things sound really
It
good, though.
sounds great, but is it realistic?
No.
So, what we try to do and what we advocate for is more of the idea of these self-care snacks. So, just as an example, if I reflect on, some self-care snacks that I do, maybe it's, 5 minutes of stretching in the morning, or I have an app on my phone that reminds me to take a deep breath every hour. So that's a little self-care snack that if my emotional temperature is say a 5 out of 10, maybe that helps bring me down just a notch and it takes less than 5 minutes to do
Yeah.
that. It takes maybe a minute to do those 3 breaths that I need to do.
Yeah.
There's also journaling before bed, and maybe it's just writing one piece of gratitude. So it's a sentence. And if you feel, oh my gosh, pulling out a journal and writing, that even sounds like too much of a snack, right?
Yeah.
That's too big of a task for me. Just thinking about it before bed. This can make a difference in how we're able to respond to ourselves, how we're able to respond to our partners, friends, and our children's emotions.
Yeah, and so what's really cool about these snacks, they're so realistic and manageable given how hectic our days tend to be. So they're more accessible. You're more likely to just begin the activity because it's write one sentence. And so for me, I have a morning ritual that I don't do every morning, but where I want to do as many pull-ups as I can, I drop to the floor, do as many push-ups as I can, and I'll just do body weight squats. And if I'm doing this, it takes 2 minutes, but I don't ever go into it being like, I'm going to go work hard for really 2 minutes. I literally tell myself, I'm going to go hang from that chin up bar. And so when I roll out of bed, I go to the chin up bar because hanging from the bar is pretty easy to do. And if it ends there, cool. At least I got a good stretch in. But you'll find with these snacks, the hardest part is that initiating activity, just doing the thing to get started. And once you start, that's when the snack can become a bit bigger. That 10-second thing is now a 5-minute thing. And taking the journaling, just tell yourself, I'm going to write down one sentence, one thing I'm grateful for. And just you grabbing the journal, grabbing the pen and starting writing, that's the hard part. You're now eating that self care snack. And once the wheels start turning, you now have momentum. And that one sentence could turn it into a full page if you have the time for it. But the good thing about the snack is you're not expecting to have these big, huge pockets of your day soaked up by self care. It's great if it can and does roll that way, but you're setting this really small, manageable goal, which will help you initiate the activity and then reap those kind of self care benefits.
And it's helpful to tie these self care snacks to our regular daily routines. For example, if I'm thinking like neck stretches are really a way that I can tap into regulation, Can I do those every morning while I'm packing snacks or chatting with the kids about their day? Another thing I like to do for self regulation is ear massage. If you're not familiar with it, look it up.
Doing it right now, man.
We go into it in one of our workshops, but it really is so regulating and something I'm able to do when I'm just at a stoplight driving. So it's something that I've sort of tied into something I'm already doing. Also, setting reminders on your phone. That has been so, so helpful, whether it be an app or just, setting that reminder to buzz so that you do something that's going to support your regulation.
Yeah, and so we have a whole workshop called 57 plus ways to chill, and we recounted it's about 80 tips. And but within this
Not to
workshop,
overwhelm you,
yeah,
but
within this workshop though, there are all of these things that you can choose to say, I'll just do that. And so the ear massage is one of our tips, for example. And no joke, just now as I was doing it, I did it for what 10, 15 seconds, and immediately I've had a big breath out of, and that's my body releasing bound up tension. I'm activating my parasympathetic nervous system. And from a biological perspective, I am calming my body. I am chilling out. And so, you can look up as many of these regulation strategies as you can and just make a short list of ones that you are going to intentionally set that reminder on your phone to go off at a certain time every day when you can sacrifice just a minute to get started with the activity. And you'll find that as you have these snacks throughout the day, they all add up to a really big self care meal that has you showing up as that co regulator that you want to be.
so you have this menu that you can go to.
Yeah.
And we also talk a lot about seeking support. So if you have a partner, getting your partner on
Yeah.
board with what you're doing, or a friend, a close family member that can help support you, even if that's a professional, you need professional support to help you manage stress and maintain emotional balance. Those are all things that we advocate for and highly recommend that you access.
Yeah. So moving along here, we do have some big takeaways with this tip number one here, right? So just to go through them, co-regulation is this two-way process, right? It's this idea that we want to have a calm, regulated home. We expect it from our partners, from our kids. It is two-way, meaning it starts with us. We need to show up regulated to kind of spread that regulation across the family. But just keep in mind, as this two-way process works, that works with the dysregulation as well. So not to pass judgment or blame you, but if it's you, your partner, your kids, if any one person is in the environment and they are dysregulated, expect it almost to spread if we don't take action to lean towards co-regulation, right? You'll get this widespread co-dysregulation, which is something we've seen so much. We have four young kids, so you can imagine one of them is having a meltdown, the whole family just kind of co-dysregulates together. But what it really takes is, as you can kind of tip the scales in the right direction, if you have more people showing up regulated. And the idea is we have to intentionally practice strategies to show up regulated so we can share that calm and co-regulate.
So we know that all of our nervous systems are connected on some level, right? So that is why you may have heard taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It really isn't. It is essential for making sure that we're able to foster these secure and connected environments with the kids that are in them with us, right? So that we're all able to thrive because it isn't just about the kids, right? We focus a lot on children. And while that is so, so important, we are all living this one life, and our regulation, our well being is just as important. And when we take care of ourselves, we are going to be better able to support our kids, take care of them, and ensure that they are going to be able to live the most fulfilling lives that they are able to.
Well said, like a poet. So, tip number one, take care of yourself. Two, take care of them. Moving on into tip number two, be the calm in their storm.
So I love this one and I love this saying. This really is co regulation in action, right? Why does this matter? Why do we need to be the calm in their storm? We talked about our kids are borrowing our calm. Parents, caregivers, educators, trusted adults are that calm presence that's going to help to co regulate the child's nervous system, right?
Yeah.
We need to stop. And I'm repeating myself here, but it's because it's the most important piece.
Yeah.
We need to be able to stop ourselves from getting caught up in their storms. And that's not easy and it's not realistic every time,
Right.
but it's something that we're aiming for. Not perfection, just progress in that direction, right?
Yeah.
Co regulating instead of escalating.
Yeah, and I think just to really highlight something you said there, this idea of perfection, like we don't really do it that much anymore, Jenny. I think we've gotten pretty good, but we would spend nights in bed once the kids are all in bed, and it was an awful bedtime routine. We couldn't regulate ourselves, and we just would get swept up into the storms, and it was like an awful night. We'd be there in bed crying, feeling all of that weight and that shame from how we showed up as the adults. And if it's one thing we've gotten pretty good at is shifting our expectation as showing up as these perfect parents who are always regulated because you are human. If you're watching this, we are human beings. We do have a wide spectrum of emotions, and some of us are just so deeply feeling that they are big emotions. It doesn't ever make sense to have full control over those emotions all the time. And
Right.
so, sure, you and I still have our moments where we join the storm, we make things worse. But like, we've gotten really good now at recognizing when we do that and immediately like forgiving ourselves for it, which then sets us up to like be better in the future. We can
Right.
apologize to them, we can repair the damage, and we show up next time even better. And so we're having those moments of co-escalation less and less because we're expecting ourselves to make mistakes and not letting the blame and the shame kind of weigh us down. We're quick to move through it and just show up better next time.
And expecting our kids to have hard times too.
Yeah.
I think that has been a huge shift for us as well,
Yeah.
realizing that we don't show up calm every time, right? We don't show up regulated every time, whatever that might look like for the environment that we're in. We can't expect that of our kids from moment to moment. We have different tools that we're able to access, right? We're running at a different emotional temperature. We might not even be able to access some of the tools that are in our toolbox, right? We cannot expect that of our kids at home, in school, in the community. We're going to fluctuate and we need to give them and ourselves grace. So just realizing that challenging times, hard times are going to come up and we do have some tools. What can we do?
Yeah.
Right. To
So
support ourselves
so
and our kids.
digging into like the number one go-tos that I feel like every human on the planet, but here specifically parents and teachers of young kids, the breath work. And I feel awful kind of saying it because we've heard about taking deep breaths forever now, but it is quite literally the science backed fastest tool to start regulating your nervous system. If you find your emotional temperature is running a bit high, you feel yourself kind of escalating, you're in that storm. Kid is screaming over something that's wildly ridiculous to you. It's
But not to
easy,
them.
right? But definitely not to them. You can feel yourself start to escalate. And this
Right.
is where we could fall into that pattern of co-escalation, joining their storm, making it that big hurricane. If we could find it within ourselves to click the pause button, I literally have used this visual where it's like I got a remote control, click the pause button. You give yourself seconds, doesn't have to be minutes, seconds to say, I'm going to intentionally take a deep breath and deep breath in. Hold it a bit if you can, and then slow, exaggerated breath out. And so, really quickly, the science behind what's happening on a physiological level as we're breathing in, our sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for fight or flight mode, is being activated. As we breathe out, our parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and digest, is getting activated. So we can intentionally leverage the lengths of our breaths, whether it be the inhale and the exhale, to shift on from a biological pathway, our regulation. So the taking deep breaths, there are so many breath work strategies, and it's up to you to kind of do some digging and find the one that you like best and works best for you. But as long as you follow the simple basic rule of having your exhales be longer than your inhales, you will start to shift your body into that parasympathetic rest and digest, calm and regulating state. And so Jenny and I were quick to breathe. Like, we have the reminders going off of our phone to even do this preactively, regardless of how we're feeling in the moment, wherever our emotional temperature is. We pause and we breathe, and it just takes us down a little bit, lowers that baseline emotional temperature. And what's cool is while you're breathing, you can then use a mantra to support yourself. I can take a pause, take a minute to breathe. I can stay in control. And as you're doing this, you just want to make sure you come back to address your child with a soft tone, that kind of calm, relaxed, steady body language. They are picking up on a lot of nonverbal behaviors. So this goes well beyond your yelling, your loudness. It's like the
Mhm.
tone with which we're delivering it, our facial expression, our body posture. Are we looking over them, looking down on them? Come down to their level, relaxed, calm. Then again, the breath work, the mantra are going to help you access that. And if they're open to touch, nice, soft, gentle touch, sometimes I'll even go to do a gentle touch when my child's having a hard time and they jerk away. Like, they're in a fear state and they can perceive things as attacks. So it's never a one size fits all. But instead, I can imagine a parent wanting to go to regulate their kid, it getting rejected, and the parent taking it personally, like, oh, I tried to help and you won't. Through it all, breathe, calm. No matter what, your number one job is to maintain regulation.
Right. So you're really modeling calmness even when they're overwhelmed, even when they're pushing you away. And that sounds really challenging, right? Our kids can say some things that really cut deep. I think the hardest one is like, I hate you, right? I don't want you to be my mommy
Yeah.
anymore. We've heard those things before. I'm sure you have too. But how are we able to show up and not feel like we need to directly teach a lesson in that moment? Because that's, important too, right? We're going to get into some of this is we're not trying to teach during moments of dysregulation. Instead, we're showing up as those calm co-regulators, helping them to learn through modeling how they can respond to these big emotions that are really real for them.
Yeah.
And what they need from us is that calm, trusted adult and someone who's validating the things that they're feeling. So saying something like, you're feeling really upset right now. I'm here to help you through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Right.
so just other examples of like language that you can use, because sometimes they're not might not be ready for language. So it does depend on the situation, does depend on the kid.
Just a calm presence, right?
Yeah.
Just being in their space. They're aware that you are there for them. That really is the most important part, and that you are not someone to be feared during their hardest time,
Right.
right?
And so do keep in mind that what's happening within them during these moments is their nervous system does not feel safe. Their nervous system is in fight or flight mode. I am in danger. And this could literally be because you don't have another lollipop in the house and they really want a lollipop. But their nervous system is on fire, screaming, I'm not safe. So if they are open to hearing words, one of the best messages you could deliver to them from like a cognitive perspective is, I'm here, you are safe. And you could just, again, sit there with them, kind of being in their sight, taking those slow, calm, deep breaths. And this is where you are modeling now these self regulation strategies, which will help them grow into those adults who pause and take a breath when they're not feeling so safe.
Right. I think what's so wonderful is that even our youngest kids can practice breath work in an emotional or in a developmentally appropriate way, right?
Yeah.
Like we say to our 3-year-old, smell the flowers, blow out the candles, right? Or he'll be laying in bed. We put a stuffy on his belly and we're trying to make that stuffy go up and down while he's breathing. So we can work on these skills that are going to set the foundation for self regulation for our kids. But we truly need to teach these things, right?
Yeah.
Just one more example before we move on. So, say we're wanting to offer co regulation. We see this all the time in our house. Someone spills something, and maybe you want to jump to, oh, it's not a big deal. Or maybe you want to jump to more of a shame. Like, how I
Yeah.
told you not to do that, and look what happened, right? But instead, what if we said something like, oh, that's really frustrating, isn't it? Let's clean it up together, right? This
Right.
whole idea that we're on their team and we're going to support them in whatever way they need, even if we know they are completely capable of cleaning up that mess on their own.
Yep.
Maybe in that moment they're not. Maybe they are. We're trying to figure out what it is that our kids need and meet them where they are so that they feel safe in that moment and are able to arrive as problem solvers that are able to use the skills that they have. Because when they show up more emotional, they're going to be less likely to be able to access those skills that we know they have developed, right?
Yeah.
And then we're expecting them to use them when they're not able to.
Exactly. All righty. So that's 2 tips down. We are moving right along then into tip number 3, connection before correction. So many of us were raised in a parenting culture of correction, correction, correction. Anytime you're doing something that the parents don't want you to do or are perceived as being bad, they were quick to show up with criticism and correction. And again, when people, but especially kids, are having a hard time, again, when that fight or flight system is activated, there's no real learning. There's no real point in trying to correct or teach or criticize when someone is having a hard time. We are open for learning when we are regulated, and we get regulated through connection. So, connection before correction always.
So, why does this matter? Like we've been saying, co regulation and connection go hand in hand. Our kids have to feel connected to us. What does that mean, right? They need to feel emotionally secure. They need to not be acting out of a place of fear with us, right? Would they need to be connected so that they're then more open to our boundaries
Yeah.
and they're able to learn the skills of self regulation. We need to be connected and emotionally secure in order to do that.
Yeah. And so we've gotten a lot of feedback. We share a lot of content on social media, and you all know what can show up in those comment sections. And so, we're obviously very connection first, or we're trying to be. And so many people will come in and be like, no, you can't be their friend. You're there to tell them the way it needs to be. And I think those parents are just ignorant of the research in parenting and within these relationships. A parent's 2 big jobs are, yes, to one, set boundaries and limits, restrictions, rules. The kids need it. But the other big job is to show them unconditional love. And so, therefore, those boundaries, rules, and limits need to come from a place of love. And we get it backwards so often, where we lead with the boundaries and not with the love. When we focus on that love, that relationship first, connecting, we are literally creating this like foundation of trust within the relationship that will make the correction, which should come. We're not saying don't correct your kids, but it doesn't have to be delivered as criticism in the moment. When you
Right.
connect
And it
first,
doesn't ever look like criticism, right? It
right?
looks more like teaching. It looks like
Yes,
modeling. It looks like teaming up and doing it together
yeah,
versus this is how it should be done. And I'm towering over you and telling you how
bingo.
to
And so
be, how to
the
act.
whole idea is we don't want to be these dictators just talking to them with those rough tones, but think of it more as a calm, regulated, kind, helpful guide that
Mhm.
is helping them through their challenges. And I promise you, if you connect, those power struggles that we see fade away. You want to think of it like this: you can do things throughout the day. And we were having a conversation before this presentation
Mhm.
about how in the mornings I go and I wake up and I lay with everybody. I talked about going and doing my chin ups, my push ups, my squats. Once I've got my blood pumping, I'll go and actually start with Jenilee. I'll climb over to her side of the bed and rub her back for a little bit. Then I go to my 9-year old and 7-year-old's room. I'll lay with them for a bit. I'll go to my 12-year-old if she isn't out of bed yet. Everyone gets a moment of connection with me to start their day. And it's not just for them, it's for me too. It's like I'm making an investment into these like relationship bank accounts, these connection bank accounts, which I can then kind of withdraw from throughout the day. I'm building these relationships proactively. So, yes, connecting in the moment is super important, but it's also about connecting proactively to really build up that bank account.
Right. So really building in that one-on-one time
Yeah.
with our kids, with each of our family members is so, so important for connection building, right? So how do we achieve this tip of connection before correction, right? So it might look like instead of correcting, we're validating their feelings first, right? Even if we need to set limits, that's fine. Boundaries are important. Connection and boundaries, that's parenting, right? We need to have both, right? So, say siblings are fighting over a toy. I might say something like, "Oh my gosh, I can see you're really upset because you wanted that toy,"
Mhm.
right? It doesn't mean you're taking the toy away from the sibling. Rather, you're helping the one who wants the toy to feel seen, right? That's what we all really want in life.
Al-
We just want
Always,
to
every day.
feel seen
Just
by
please,
the
someone.
people around us. Someone acknowledge that, like, having a sibling is really hard.
Yeah.
Having friends in class that you have to share with when you're a toddler, when you're under the age of 7, when you're over the age of 7, it's challenging to have to share with people. So let's
Yeah.
acknowledge those feelings, right? And then, at home, I might offer physical comfort. I may hold their hand, give them a hug, help their body to really calm down through co-regulation. So, not always using all the verbal stuff, right?
Right.
Actually using ourselves to connect physically.
And
And then
just really quick there, Jenny. So to familiarize some of you with the research here, we're talking about getting the that neurotransmitter, that hormone of oxytocin flowing. And so again, touch isn't always wanted. So you have to find that line. But if much of the time we found with our kids and with each other, all we really want is a sense of connection if there's a challenge. And again, this extends to my relationship with Jenilee. Our biggest fights come from when we feel disconnected. And much of the time things start to shift when we're like, heck, this morning we actually had a morning meeting and Jenny said, "Hey, let's go to the couch." And you sat on my lap and we kind of held each other and talked. As you're touching someone, especially like these hugs, the warmth of it all, your brain is releasing oxytocin. You're feeling safe, you're feeling connected, you're feeling trust. And beyond touch, even just eye contact can be a really great way to get oxytocin to flow. Just make sure you don't have a scowl on your face and that you have the gentle, empathetic look of care and compassion. Again, their bodies can pick up on these nonverbal behaviors, increase the oxytocin, and help them feel more connected and safe with you.
so bottom line in for the second bullet is that we need to feel validated. Our kids need to feel validated
Yeah.
before they can begin to problem solve, right? So involve them in this. If they're having a hard time sharing this, the reason I'm talking about this is because we so often hear my child won't share with their sibling, they won't share with their friends. What do I
Yeah.
do? I'm constantly having to intervene, they're fighting. Instead of saying
Hmm.
something like, you have to share, what if we replace that with, "You really love playing with this toy, don't you? Sharing can be hard."
Yeah.
Then they don't necessarily immediately jump into that fight or flight because they're feeling seen. Someone understands that this is hard. Okay, maybe I can problem solve how to make sure someone else gets a turn. And I know I feel safe and secure in my environment and with these trusted adults that I'm going to have a turn again.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
And so you could see that the support seesaw is our third bullet, and then you got the imagery there on the slide. The support seesaw has been one of the most groundbreaking kind of metaphors that Jenny and I have come across and have been trying our best to stay mindful of because things tend to get really hard with our kids and we have a really hard time with their hard time. But this idea here, I'll explain it. You want to imagine a seesaw, and we all know how seesaws work, right? As one side goes down, the other side goes up. The support seesaw works like this. You want to imagine your kids' skills, which do fluctuate moment to moment. Just because you know your skill has or your child has demonstrated a skill in the past
Mhm.
doesn't mean it will transfer over into any one given moment. So within any one specific moment, their skills are here on one side, and the amount of support you should be offering are there on the other side of the seesaw. The way things typically go, their skills will go down in the moment. They're having a hard time, whether it be through sharing or a meltdown, or again, not wanting to brush their teeth at bed, whatever it might be. Their skills are going down in the moment. As their skills go down, we need to remember we need to keep increasing our support. And so much of the time, like Jenny was saying earlier, we really just need to get on their team and work together. Instead of saying, I know you know how to do this. Sure, you might know that they know, but in that moment, their skills are down here. So you got to step up your support. So if my kid is refusing to brush their teeth at bedtime, I might say something like, along with the validation, it's okay to feel upset about brushing your teeth. I get you don't want to do it. Sometimes I don't want to do it either. But how about this? Let's do it together. And you could turn it into even like a play. We do a lot of challenges. Let's see if we can put a song on and see if we can finish brushing our teeth by the time the song is over. And so the idea is instead of just jumping into correction mode and being that authoritarian parent, you're now this more authoritative parent. You brought in that love, that care, that connection, and you're increasing your support as their skills are going down in the moment, right? We are there to be helpers, not enforcers.
And it goes the seesaw goes the other way too, right?
Yeah.
We can see our kids' skill level increase. Maybe we're still wanting to provide the same amount of support, right? Like, wow, they really are able to access their ability to zipper their coat right now, but I need to get out the
Yeah.
door. I'm
Right.
going to just do it for them and hurry them along. That can cause dysregulation too. So, can we, when they show us what they're capable of, when their skill levels increase, can we know how to gradually pull back that support? So we're providing that sort of just right level of support for our kids, which is so, so challenging and a
Yeah.
constant work in progress.
Yeah, and I think it's good to know that there is never a one size fits all perfect answer. All of parenting is one massive guessing game. You can
Right.
just learn more strategies and learn more about development to end up making better guesses. But I think, yeah, one of the hardest things for us to do as parents is to let go of control sometimes. But like you're saying, Jenny, sometimes their skills are at the top level. They're at a 10 right now, and we need to get better at letting go of control and dropping our support and allowing them the opportunity to flex their independence, their autonomy,
To
and
practice those skills, right? Even
bingo.
even if it might lead to a mess, right?
Yeah, this is literally we're making dinner last night, and I asked my 12-year-old, who is starting to step up more as a helper in the home, to cut up the garlic for the meal that we were making. And I'm sitting and watching her peel the garlic and slowly cut it. And I'm sitting there like tapping my foot on the ground, like I might just shove her out of the way and mince these things up. But I took a breath, backed up, and sure, we had dinner, let's say 5 to 10 minutes later than we would have, but she was given the space to flex her skills. And she, as a result of having that space, is now more likely to be more independent next time we cook. So we let go control. When we see skills are up, drop the support.
Right.
All right. That brings us to our fourth and final tip of this presentation. It's one of the things that we are so trying to get better at ourselves because play as adults can be so challenging to access. But the tip, play your way to co regulation. And so Jenilee's our OT. She's our play expert in the home. So I'll let her take it.
Play expert, but I find play very challenging as well. It's hard to find that playfulness, that silliness, when so much of it I feel is squashed throughout our lifetime, right? We
Okay.
start off so playful, so silly, and that sort of fizzles out as we get older sometimes, right? But
Yeah.
how wonderful to be able to find it again, to be that playful, silly adult that is able to just naturally engage in this way that's going to support co-regulation, right? Play really allows our kids to be able to process all different kinds of emotions, right? All emotions are okay, all emotions are valid. Play helps them to be able to process, access these emotions in a safe and enjoyable way while also connecting with you,
Mhm.
knowing and hoping that it's not going to break that connection, right? We don't want our emotions to break connections
Yeah.
with people in our lives, and that's why we often act out in ways that we do out of fear that that connection is going to be broken in some way. So, during play, you're able to share a focus on something, right? You're able to laugh, and we know laughter is so regulating for the nervous system. So, really bringing in play, finding that silly, not just in the playroom, right?
Yeah.
Bringing that silly throughout life, bringing silly into the classroom, into your daily routines is regulating for all of us. And if you haven't been playing, try it. And it might feel uncomfortable at first, but you are going to realize that you are going to feel better within yourself having done it.
Yeah, and so I know I'm getting a little off
That's
topic
my
here, but
PSA for play.
yeah, but it's so true. And again, I'm not trying to get too off topic, but Jenilee and I are husband and wife. With any relationship, there come conflicts, there come challenges. And
Mhm.
we were having dinner the other night and realizing we don't play enough with each other. I know the focus here is mostly children, but our relationship started so strong because we just played. We were silly. Everything was light. But now when we talk, it's almost always something serious. Like, how can we be better parents? It's
What
almost
intentions do we have for this weekend, and can we check all the
yeah,
boxes? What
yeah. It's just become so serious our relationship, and
Yeah,
we're learning that play isn't just for kids. We all need play within our adult relationships, but also just for ourselves. If we want to show up as the regulated people that we want to be and that our kids need and that our partners deserve, we have to play. Play not like for ourselves. You can play independently, but when you are playing with another person, like after this presentation is done, Jenny and I are probably going to go grab lunch together and we're not talking work. We're going to be silly. We're going to be goofy. We're going to find ways to play together.
right, people are probably like, "What does that mean? What does play mean for adults?"
Yeah.
Picking up cards, playing a game of cards,
Yeah.
right? Having a dance party in the kitchen. Don't overcomplicate it. Play is basically what brings you joy, what's fun for you.
Yeah.
Where do you find yourself sort of getting into that flow state, right? That we see kids get into, and we so often as adults interrupt their flow state, right? And then
Yeah.
expect them to quickly switch gears to what we're doing. What gives us that sort of flow state where we're engaged and we're like so into it, we're enjoying ourselves? It's play is joyful, right?
Yeah, it is. And so when we're playing, again, you want to imagine that oxytocin flowing throughout your brain. You are going to release stress. You are going to be connecting with this person. Your nervous systems are going to co regulate. You are going to feel safe. And safety is the key to all like navigating, to successfully navigating every possible challenge that you have in front of you. So having that kind of playful vibe throughout your home is going to just dramatically shift things in the right direction.
Right. So you might be thinking again, I haven't played in years. How do I even like begin to access this, right? This is so hard for us as adults. We get it. Sometimes my daughters say, "You want to play dolls?" And I'm like, "Uh-huh."
Start to cringe, yeah.
Again, like doing the same themes again. Okay. It's easy for kids to play. Play is the occupation of children, right? So it's easy for them, it's natural. So what do we need to do? We need to follow their lead, allow them to be our greatest teachers in this area,
Mm,
right? Let go of it all. Let yourself be silly during playtime. Watch them. Observe our kids. What are they doing to remain playful,
yeah,
right? When we allow that sort of observation, like we said at the beginning of this presentation, just being present while they're playing, right? Not asking all these questions, but rather just, being mindful in that moment and almost sort of like imitating what they're doing. We're following their lead. We're helping to tap into to access those areas for ourselves as well. So, again, a natural stress reliever, finding what sort of play matches with your nervous system where you
Yeah.
are at any given point. So, like, Greg's really into like roughhousing. It's not so much my thing. So maybe I'm not the one engaging in that as much as him, right? But maybe dancing is something that helps me, access, emotions that are maybe stored away. It helps me co-regulate with my kids. So I'm doing those sorts of activities, right? Maybe I even find like homemaking, preparing a meal, that's regulating for me. There's ways to make it playful,
Yeah.
right? Can I engage in those sort of activities with my kids? So finding by following them what's going to work for both of you. Like I love playing with Play-Doh,
Yeah.
right? It's like random, but if I never tried it out, you'd never know.
That's
So you
it.
have to give it a go.
Yeah. And so like you said, just observe like mad. Find what they're interested in, and do your best to let them lead. And you will find you might start off being really uncomfortable, not be even sure what to do. But after a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes pass, you I promise you, will see your body shifting into a more playful, silly mode. It does take a while for me sometimes. I'll make a commitment. I'm going to play with my kids, but it's a really awkward first few minutes. But as a result of just sitting there and trying and again following their lead, just letting them run the show. Yeah, like you were saying, Jenny, they're the teachers. They're now guiding you on how to play.
Right.
You do develop those skills and can then access the play more easily. And the third bullet here, when all else fails, if you're not sure how to turn this into play, any really thing into play, you can gamify it, which is something that our kids, because we have multiple kids, they can kind of work together on a team to really get through anything.
Yeah. So like our toddler went through a phase where like he did not transitioning to getting dressed before leaving for school was extremely challenging to the point where I felt like I just have to drag him into the bathroom. I just have to take his clothes off. I have to put his clothes on. That's the way I was feeling. But when I was able to gamify the activity, which sounds like, oh, that sounds so like daunting and like more of
Right.
a task for me. But in reality, it feels so much better to make things a game. It makes the morning routine easier, right? So I would pretend he's really into Spider-Man. So like,
Oh, yeah.
let's
Who
pretend
isn't though? Come on.
let's pretend you're Spider-Man and we're gonna web sling to the bathroom and going up the stool is you climbing up the side of the building. And we don't do any of that anymore. But it took
Yeah.
a lot of time with play being infused into the activity to get him to the point of, being more independent, being able to transition. And now, now he wants to do everything independently, putting his,
Yeah.
shirt and pants on his own and all of that. But play has really changed our lives. I know, during our kids' most challenging times, even if someone is like, do you remember the muffin magician?
I do. Yeah.
You want to tell, like, just very quickly tell how play changed
Yeah.
a really challenging.
So from what I remember, you can correct me here. So Jenilee had made muffins, and one of our kids, well, probably our 3-year-old, was having a meltdown because I think he wanted like the whole plate, and we were like, no, we got to share the muffins. And so
Right.
he's freaking out because we got to a point where I think all the muffins had there's maybe one muffin left, but muffins around, and I brought some silliness into it, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna run some magic, and I'm gonna make a new muffin here, and I think our maybe 7-year-old had a muffin kind of behind her back.
Mhm.
We're like, we're gonna make a new muffin appear on the plate. Everyone close your eyes. And I had some sort of magical spell that I said, but when he opened his eyes, and with the help of our 7-year-old, the muffin then appeared on the plate. And as a 3-year-old, he's like, oh my God. Like, and he's like, do it again. And so I think we did it like 3 more times. But yeah, we got silly. I used my imagination. Yeah, you can pretty much turn anything into a kind of silly game if you just allow yourself space to be a bit creative. And while you were talking about the morning routine Spider-Man thing, I was reflecting on how we've gamified the morning routine for our 9 and 7-year-old. They have a really hard time getting out of bed, getting dressed, brushing their teeth, all the things. And so we have a new challenge that we've started with the movie Wicked has just released, and we're listening to the soundtrack. And there's this one song. I'm blanking on the name. Jenny, help me.
Dancing through life.
Dancing Through Life is the name of the song. It's like a 9-minute song. And so we now have a Dancing Through Life morning challenge where, it's 7 o'clock. All right, we're putting the song on and let's see if we can do all the steps before the song finishes. And this morning, they were ready within those 9 minutes. And so it goes to show you how a little gamification, a little bit of play can co-regulate those super weak. So dysregulated doesn't always mean you're a 10. It could mean you're a 1 on that emotional spectrum. You're like, you're a blah, just waking up in the morning. But
Right.
that challenge allowed them space to, get energized, get out of bed and do the job. And we work together as a team. It's about all of us being ready by the timer. It's not a competition, which could lead to fights. It's okay. Once you're ready, go to someone else on your team and see what you can do to help them along.
Right.
Um,
That is a great sibling tip, right?
yes.
Getting siblings on the same team. So,
Yeah.
at first they wanted to make it competitive, right? So and so, I was ready before so and so, they were the one holding back the team, whatever it might
Yeah.
be. And when we really sat down and talked with them about, if you're done, who can you help, right? Who can you support so that we're all done and the parents we're here doing it too, right? We're not sitting there, not getting ready ourselves, relaxing. We're actively doing the task as well, showing them, we're all on the same team. We're in this together. And can we like beat the clock, which
Yeah.
is so fun for that age group.
Yeah, it's been fun, and anytime you make that clock a song or a series of songs, it's music, you're kind of stacking strategies. You got the ticking clock, the competition, but then the music, which just we all, know can be incredibly regulating, I guess, depending on the song.
Right.
All
All
right,
of us against the song versus against each other.
exactly. So just a quick recap here. We have our 4 tips that we have talked about during this presentation. Number 1, take care of yourself so you can show up as a regulated person to take care of them, right? We will always be our kids' greatest models. And, as they turn into teenagers and then younger adults, that'll be less and less. But when you have these kids for these very few years early on, recognize the power within how you show up. And you're going to show up better when you take time intentionally out of your day, even if it's just those tiny little snacks to take care of yourself.
Right. So you're taking time for yourself. So you're able to arrive at this second bullet point, being the calm in their storm. We talked a lot today about how when we're regulated, we're going to be less likely to get swept up in their storm, right? Co escalate, making their storm bigger, making their fire bigger. We're going to actually help to put out the fire to help lessen the storm when we're able to really take that pause, use regulating in the moment strategies, and be the calm that they so desperately need.
Yeah. Tip number 3, it's going to be hard. Connection before correction, right? Um, we're going to get that urge to throw out that corrective or critical comment. It makes sense. That's part of our job to kind of set the boundaries, restate the boundaries, maintain the boundary. It all makes sense that you get that urge. But they need to feel connected to us so their nervous system feels safe, so their brain will be open to whatever correction you have to deliver. So connect before you correct. That way, the correction will actually seed. It'll actually, turn into that lovely plant. If you're throwing those corrections out there without having that connection, you're throwing those corrections to an unsafe nervous system, you are wasting your energy and you're probably just co escalating things.
Right. So we're really connecting, knowing that every human around us, whatever age they might be, is showing up in the best way they possibly can in that moment, right? With their regulation, with their tools and strategies that they have access to in that moment. Same applies for our kids. How can we really get connected with our kids, really access our own regulation? We can do it through play. It is a gateway to co regulation. As I said earlier, play really is the occupation of childhood, but play is so important throughout the lifespan, even into old age, right? If you're in a nursing home and you see those older adults, taking they have a bat and they're like batting a balloon back and forth. Everyone's got a smile on their face. Play is so important. It doesn't matter what age you are.
Yeah.
And you really can, at any age, follow the lead of children because they are the ones that are going to teach us how to get that back if we feel like we've lost that piece of us.
Oh, sounds so wonderful. All right. So, if you've enjoyed this presentation and you are looking for more, we do offer a lot of free support through our social media accounts. You will find us as at happy.human.life on Instagram or just at happyhumanlife, no dots, on Facebook. We're posting reels, we're posting carousels. We share our greatest tips to our greatest challenges. But if you're looking to level up the kind of support you might be seeking, you can work with us directly. You can go to happyhumanlife.org. We are creating workshops where not only will you learn strategies, but we'll help you put them into practice. We host webinars with our membership community that look very similar to what this presentation is. You can just be there live with us to ask questions. And we do offer personalized support in our membership group. So many more things, but you can learn all about it going to happyhumanlife.org, checking it out. But at minimum, hop on Instagram, check us out. And yeah, we look forward to working with you in any capacity, even if it's just through social media.
Yeah, I think we also have a weekly newsletter as well
We
called
do.
Briefings Thursday. So if you head on over to happyhumanlife.org, go to newsletter, sign up to receive that. We have questions from the Happy Human Life community. We provide tips similar to the ones we provided today. We have a toolkit section where we talk about different tools and strategies that we use in our own lives. So we would love to have all of you check that out and be able to take advantage of the resources that we have available.
All right. Are we good, Jenny?
I think we're good.
All
It's been
right.
a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
All right. Thanks for being here.